Susan Grau is a soul healer, renowned body, mind, and spirit intuitive, inspirational speaker, and Hay House bestselling author. Her journey began following a profound near-death experience at the age of just 4.5 years old. That pivotal moment in her life awakened her unique healing abilities, allowing her to connect with spirits from the other side. Today, I discuss with Susan spirituality, the afterlife, and near-death experiences. And Susan shares her journey of discovering her abilities as a medium. We also explore the nature of the soul, the importance of being present in the moment to enhance intuition and connect with loved ones. And finally, we touch on the impact of suicide on loved ones, the concept of transitioning from life to death, and the emotional toll of being a medium. Thanks for joining me at Hopenning 2.0.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Hopenning. This is the place where hope happens when you open your mind and heart to it. And I am so excited to interview Susan Grau today. And Susan, you're in Southern California, and green leaves and flowers all over the place, and just like surfing.
Yes, we do. And we have allergies right now because there's so much pollen because everything is blooming. It's beautiful.
And here I am in northern Alberta, Canada, and the first dandelion is just trying to come.
Yay.
I know we really see the change of seasons here. So, Susan, you are an intuitive therapist, healer. You're a doctor of divinity. You are an intuitive medium. You've got so many titles. I got a hold of you through Anita Morjani, and
She's a friend.
she told me about you. I reached out, and you accepted to come on the opening, and I'm getting goosebumps again.
I love that. Energy shift.
Whoever watches my show knows this. I get these goosebumps when I know truth, right? Truth, spirit talks to me through goosebumps. And so we talked a little bit about this off camera because there will be voices that say, "Fran, you're a Catholic, you're a Christian. What are you doing interviewing a medium?" So what do you say? You've done this for decades. You have talked to the spirit world. You have talked about spirit guides, and we'll get into that later. We'll talk about your book as well. But you used to be Catholic too.
I think for me, I can only speak for me and my journey, but for me, um, having a near-death experience and experiencing the afterlife does change the landscape a bit as far as connection goes. But I will say that I'm firmly in the planting of the ground when it comes to knowing that our loved ones don't leave us anymore. They want to be around us and love us and be near us as much as we want them around us and loving us and near us. And love does not die, and energy does not die. It's kind of like think of electricity going through a wall, and you unplug the lamp, and the lamp doesn't light up. But as soon as you plug into it, there you are, you have your light. And so, that it's kind of like that. You have to plug into it and to understand it and experience it and feel it. But everyone is connected to the afterlife.
I was listening to your book on tape, and you talked about that and those experiences that you had as a 4.5-year-old. I think, we've got a connection, you and I, because I drowned as well when I was about 4. And I mean, by the grace of God, I'm still here today. But that's all. The grace of God and the fact that my brother noticed my shoe sticking out of the water.
I feel by the grace of God, I'm here also,
Yeah.
and what I note, when I'm reading the Bible or I'm studying anything, is that it's filled with mediumship. It truly is. There are visitations everywhere in the Bible. and the angels with Mary and Joseph, and the Sermon on the Mount, and I could go on and on and on and talk about that. And there's this beautiful, for anyone who is Christian or Catholic that's afraid of this kind of work, I want to suggest that they read Corinthians 1:14, and I think it's 7 through 14 if I remember right. And it says, "My brothers and sisters, I give you these gifts: the gift of discernment, the gift of wisdom, the gift of prophecy, the gift," and it comes from one God, and he decides who has it. And so us judging it is really going against what he shares in Corinthians. So I love that that's a truth. And I think that helps people not be so um, afraid of it, because we're afraid of it because when we watch TV and we listen to people who don't understand it. It's a healing connection. The soul is a vine to the divine, and it is connected in such a strong way. And to think that because we leave here, our soul dies or isn't connected or doesn't have a vine to our loved ones who we love so very much is not even, it doesn't even make sense to me.
The vine to the divine. I love that. There's so many references in the Bible to the vine, to the grapes, to the branches, to all of that. So you had a near-death experience at the age of 4.5. Can you tell our viewers what happened at then and as a result of that?
Okay. Well, I always saw things before that, even, animals would pass and I'd see them floating, and that just was, I didn't think anything. Um, Except for the sadness of the animal dying, but or what we call dying. But I was playing fort with some boys, and they told me that if I wanted to keep playing, I had to get up in the freezer and get popsicles. So they opened the garage door and we went into the freezer, and I got in, and it wasn't plugged in. And they closed the freezer door, and I thought, well, surely I'm just in a game. I mean, I don't think I thought that I was going to be in there. I thought they were going to open it up. And then I heard the thud of the garage door. And I have to say, terror struck, true terror. And I was screaming at the top of my lungs, asking, for my mommy. I wanted her to come get me. And our house was separated from the garage, and there was a tool shed in between, and workbenches and property. And it seemed like a long way away when I was little. I'm sure it wouldn't seem that way now, but it did then. And my mother said she heard something that sounded like a cat in heat. We had a lot of land. And so she just ignored it. And I kept screaming, and I saw these beautiful lights that I call them light angels. And they're my angels. That's what I always say. And that's how I feel about them. And they said, stop screaming. And I didn't. I was a little girl and I didn't listen. And then I heard it really loud: stop screaming. And they said, we're going to get your mommy. And I think I felt at that moment, but wait, or but hold on. But they didn't say it. And I was just pulled from my body. Most children that I work with, and I work with children who have NDEs, when I can, whenever I can. There's not that many, but whenever I can. They don't see their bodies when they leave their bodies. And I think that's a fear factor issue. So I did not see my body. I didn't look back. I was just at the bottom of the stairs looking up, and the stairs were like a Roman Greco room. Of how it's cracked, and yeah, that's what it looked like, the stairs, but they were beautiful. And I remember looking up and seeing an actual Roman Greco room. And I remember looking at it and seeing the pillars and an open ceiling, and it was all cracked, but old, but beautiful. And I knew that I wanted to get up those stairs because there was something in the center of it. And I don't know why I knew that, but I did. And the ceiling was open, just like what I knew was in the center of that room. And the minute I thought it, I was there on the ledge of it without fear. And I looked down and I heard prayers and things like, my mommy has cancer. God, please don't let her die. I'm turning 16. I want a new car. Please, God, make my dad get me a new car, or my mom get me a new car. I was hearing all these different, and it was one consciousness. And looking back now, and I didn't understand any of this then, this kind of clarity, but it looked like DNA mixing. The words were mixing like DNA, twisting and turning. And I knew it was one consciousness, but I didn't understand what that meant. I knew it felt like it was one whole of a complete set. I don't know how else to say it. And I looked over at these lights and said, where am I? And they said, you're in the room of heart's desires. And I said, do you answer all those? And they said, no, Susie, sometimes what people desire the most isn't good for them. I didn't particularly like hearing that, I don't think, because my mom would say that to me. So it was kind of confusing for me. But, I took me with me. I was me. I was a little girl. I was me. And then I saw a pathway. It was a golden pathway, and I called it the Yellow Brick Road when I came back. That's what I called it, the Yellow Brick Road, because I had seen The Wizard of Oz, and that made sense to me. And it was golden pavers. And it's so interesting because years later, I have talked about this to my husband ever since I met him, which was a lot of years ago, almost 40 years. And I used to tell him about the Yellow Brick Road and the pavers and the golden pavers and the pyramids that they took the pavers off of and started paving the path, and it was crooked. And he said, and we went to we went to church, and a pastor was saying, and the roads, or the the roads were paved in gold, basically, is what he was saying. And I can't remember the exact quote, so I don't want to be exactly quoted. And I almost fell off my chair. And my husband was going to be a priest. And he said to me, he went to seminary, and he said to me, what are you so shocked by? And I said, I didn't know that that was in the Bible. So what I saw, why didn't you tell me? And he said, I just assumed you knew, or, I don't know. I don't remember his exact answer, but it was very like, why would I tell you kind of thing. And I'm thinking, oh my God, that made sense. That came together for me. And it was an aha moment. And anyway, they were paving this path, and I watched these beautiful, they were humans, and they were trying to pave the path, and they were pulling from the bottom of this pyramid, and I knew they were unbalancing the pyramid. But I watched these beautiful angels come in and pull the pavers out, because these humans dropped to their knees and said, for the love of God, help me. Nothing's going the way I need it to. It was metaphorical. They were showing me something. And they put the pavers back and went to the top of the pyramids, these angels, and they started paving the path. And I said, what are you doing? And they said, we are the pavers, you are not. All you have to do is walk it. And I didn't know what it was, but I figured it was the path. And I asked, well, how do you know if you're walking it right? I was 2 months away from 5. You know how precocious a 5-year-old can be next to a 4-year-old. I was much closer to 5. And they said, because we bless and block everything. Make no mistake. You can get through a block battered and bruised at best, or you can shift. Of course, I didn't listen. I've tried to do everything on my own my whole life, and have tried to bang through all the walls. I'm a human having a human experience. But they said, when you shift, you will, if you see another wall, shift again. If you see another wall, shift again. And before you know it, you'll see us paving your path, basically. And one of the things they said to me that was so powerful for me, that I've never forgotten, is what you run from chases you, and what you try to control controls you. And they've repeated that to me my whole life, and I tried to control everything. It was until I got older that I went, okay, I can't control this anymore. I just can't. But my whole life I was doing that. I didn't listen, but I knew what they meant in some strange way at the moment. I not fully, I couldn't digest all of it, but definitely as time went on and I kept hearing it, and they kept pointing out in my world, in this world, as I was living life, here's another prime example. Here's another prime example, of trying to pave your own path and running from something, and here it comes in front of me again, and I run from it, and it comes in front of me again till I learn the lesson. Or something I try to control, it actually is taking over my thinking, and it's controlling me. So letting go and allowing was what I learned to tell myself as time went on and I got older. And then I flashed into the room of knowledge, which people call the Akashic Records. I don't relate to that name, although I honor it very much. I don't relate to it. It was the room of knowledge for me. And I saw not bookshelves, but I felt like they were there. And I saw a book. it was kind of virtual looking, but there was no such thing, but it kind of just flew in front of me. And I watched this family, and a little girl was going, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that, and I'm going to learn this, and I'm going to grow so much, and my soul's going to expand. I'm so excited. And they said, that's an awful lot to go through. And somebody asked me, do you think that was you? Which was another aha moment for me. That was recent, but probably was, because I chose the Ph.D. in hardship. I truly did. And then they would say, you know, you're trying to do too much in one life journey. And I heard the little girl say to them, I can do it. I know I can. And I heard them say, well, you do have free will. And they were gone. And I asked them first, where am I? And they said, you're in the room of knowledge. And my second question was, where did they go? They were just gone. And it shocked me. I wasn't still flowing with it. You know, it's like everything was so metaphorical and miraculous, and everything was alive. Even the book, everything is alive. Every blade of grass, everything. And they said they went to their next incarnation. And I didn't know what that meant. And years later, somebody said, do you believe in reincarnation, Susan? And I went, there's that word. There's that word. And I knew what it meant. And it was just because what I saw is like returning. So, and then I flashed into this beautiful, I call them rooms, but they were dimensional energies. And this beautiful room of companions. It was our animals, and all animals, beautiful. And then I was in this, not a garden, but like a mountainy, hilly area with grass everywhere. And there was dandelions, and they were growing, and there was daisies, but they weren't our dandelions and daisies. They were something I've never witnessed before, and I haven't seen since. And there were these beautiful colors, just amazingly beautiful. And I was really mesmerized. And then I looked to my left, or what I thought was my left, and I saw this mountain, and I felt this love energy coming from this mountain. And I believe it was God, but you know, whatever we call it, it's going to be the same beautiful spirit. And there was this immense love. And I wanted to get up that mountain so badly. And, you know, I knew I couldn't, but it came to me. And it was like a ray just entering my soul in a space I can't describe. And it's emotional. I was everything and I was nothing, but I was perfect. And I felt so wonderful. I wanted to stay in that love forever. And I think I've spent my life looking for that love, and it doesn't exist here. It just doesn't. And that's just the truth of it. I don't think we would be able to leave here. We would, you know, it would, I don't know. It just isn't here. We have too much brain. And then I saw this beautiful angel floating towards me, and all I could think of was, you know, here came the 4.5-year-old. I want to float. I hope I get to float. So I know I was going back into the human side in some form. And I was having some memories, and I kept thinking, I just want to float. I'm sure I was. But she was floating, and she took my hand and said, it's time to go. And there were some other things I saw. I saw this beautiful crystal. It was so enormous. I call it a crystal because I don't know what to call it. It was shaped like a pyramid. I saw a lot of threes, 3 dots, 3 angels, a pyramid has 3 dots. I mean, it's just very interesting. And Christ died at 33, and, you know, it like all makes sense to me now, but it didn't then. And I saw faces in this beautiful crystally clear glass waterfall of some sort. I know that there's no human words to describe it. And I went to reach my hand into it, and I couldn't. And I knew that there were my loved ones there, but I didn't know them because I hadn't lost anyone that I really, really loved, you know, I knew really well. I had an aunt that died, but I didn't know her really well. And I couldn't reach in it. And I knew at that moment that if I could, I wasn't coming back. I wasn't going to return. That was it. And I knew that innately, which was very interesting. And then I was near water. They said it was time to go, and they explained to me that I would have a more difficult journey, and that I had chosen that to grow and expand. I had, they made it very clear to me that it kind of looked like this, and it dropped into me. Let's say your soul wants to resonate in the understanding of marriage. You'll be married. You might be 90, but you'll be married because you chose that contract. Who you marry, how long you marry, the kind of marriage you have, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, is all free will for your soul to grow and expand. Without that, there is no growth. So you have to learn about yourself through your free will. That's what it's for. And although I had free will, I also had chosen a very difficult path to take. But they said, they explained to me the water is for cleaning and cleansing. And I thought they meant that I had to clean up my body, because I was going back to my mommy and I was in the field, and I needed to get clean, but that's not what they meant. But my child, like, I was starting to get that, human thinking. And they explained to me that we go through water, and water cleanses us, and it's created for that reason. And it's clear and beautiful, and we should honor it and protect it. And it carries so much life and energy, and just like all these things about it. And then the next thing I knew, my mom said she heard 3 times your baby's in the freezer. And she said I was in there anywhere from 20 minutes to 2 hours. She's uncertain. And I'm sure it's somewhere in between, quite honestly. I don't think it was 2 hours. And my mom said that she decided to go out, like dawned on her. It was like a scream in her ear, and dawned on her, oh my gosh. And she went out, the garage door was closed, and I wasn't big enough to open it. So she thought, she's not in there. Now, I get this a little, my mother's not here for me to get clarification, but what I remember her saying to me is that she decided she wasn't going to go in because there's no way I could open that door. And then something told her to change her mind, and she opened up the garage door. She opened up the freezer door, and I was facing inward in the freezer. Um, she spun me around, basically. And it was one of the first stand-up freezers that ever existed. And I was blue tips, and I was ashen. And, she ran to get help. There were no cell phones. And I hit my chin on, she dropped me. She let go of me because she couldn't carry me. I wasn't, a baby. I was big enough that she couldn't go fast enough. And I slammed my chin onto the pavement, and I took a breath. Now, when I got to a place that I felt better, I opened my eyes and I saw things, and it scared me. So I closed my eyes and went back to sleep. And I remember opening my eyes again, it was quite some time later, and I saw spirits. They were just everywhere. And I couldn't understand them. They were mumbling, but they were talking. And I thought they were the boogeyman. I covered my head and I'd say, go away, go away, go away. I was convinced they were the boogeyman because I couldn't assimilate what just occurred and connect those dots. I wasn't old enough to really understand. Now that I'm in my human self, I didn't have the understanding to analyze it. And that happened to me my whole life. They'd say, wake up, I just died. And I'd say, go away, go away. And then they'd start to go away. And then I'd say, oh, come back. Who are you? Who are you? And as I got older, I did that more and more and more. And so that's what happened.
And you say that you not only chose to return to your body, but you also chose the life that you are going to live. Is that correct?
Yes. Now, I don't think there were details in that, but I must have, when they say you are going to experience difficulties like hardships, I didn't understand what they meant. I don't think I chose it individually. I think that I chose, again, the Ph.D. in hardship, because I truly believe that joy and pain both teach us something. They're equivalent in value. And however, I think that pain actually might be a more of a value to us because we want out of it. So we're willing to shift and change much quicker. And we're here to grow in our soul and to expand. And someone asked me on a podcast not that long ago if our souls are perfect. And our soul doesn't need anything, because I always say our souls are never damaged. It's the vine to the divine. And that's that. It's never damaged. It feels the pain, but it doesn't get damaged by it because it's our go-to. It's the connection to spirit to help us heal. And they said to me, well, if the soul's perfect, why do we need to expand and grow? And I said, because it's infinite. And I don't know why that came into me. It was like the spirit world just dropped that into me at that moment. And it was another aha moment for me. And that wasn't that long ago. And I heard it's infinite, and nothing that's infinite can stop in growth. It has to continue. It's on a continuum. So that made total sense to me. And I went, okay, there we are again.
Okay, I would call it heaven. But if you were of a different faith, raised in a different faith, would their heaven look at the same as your heaven that you saw?
It's all the same. We just call it different things, but it's all the same. And it all, and we have a religious belief system. We know clearly that there are things that don't make sense because humans don't know, they haven't witnessed it, and they're studying it and trying to decipher the Bible and what the priest is saying or what the preacher is saying. And so everyone deciphers it differently. That's why God says, go in a room alone and pray to me, because we then get the natural the connection straight from source. So there's no interference of the true information coming in. But I truly believe that the spirit world is the same for everyone. It is a dimensional energy of beauty and safety and immense love. It is based in love. It is about love. It is for love. And it is, and we come here for growth, because if I was enveloped in love 24/7, I wouldn't grow at all. I'd just stay right there. I'd be warm and cozy, and that's what it's like there. So we want to expand and grow because our soul is infinite, and it wants to keep experiencing the infinite lessons and the tribulations and the trials and the things that we don't want to go through when we're here, clearly. But with that comes this immense joy and things that we don't experience there, like having a baby, falling in love, making love, all these things that we do here. Maybe it's as simple as going out with your friends and having a margarita and that being your joy and happiness, whatever it is. We don't do that there. We're already in complete, total love base and satisfied. And so coming here is such a beautiful experience, and it's gone in a blip. So if I were to say to you that you're going to experience the whole full spectrum of emotion, the greatest joy you'll ever feel, ever, and the hardest pain, but it will go by just like that, I don't think you'd refuse it. You'd want to know, what is all that? And that's what I think we do. We want to know, what is all this? So we, when people think about the afterlife, we choose to call it what we call it. I call it heaven and God. And it's love, which God is pure love. Pure love. And love is the highest vibrational energy in existence. Grief is the lowest, next to hate. Okay, hate's worse. Worse vibrational is the lower vibrational energy. So we come here and, people ask me, what's your soul purpose? Not your life purpose. What's your soul purpose? And I try to tell them your soul path, your soul purpose is self-love. At the end of the day, that is the bottom line of it. How you get there is your life purpose, and your soul is expanding and growing and shrinking and growing and expanding to get there. But loving of self raises your vibration. And the more you love yourself, the higher you vibrate. The higher you vibrate, the closer you are to that source, which we choose to call God or Buddha, or, whatever your belief system is, it's all the same love.
I love how you put that. It's all the same love, right? And being on a journey here on this plane, on this planet, really does remind us how to give and accept love. Because as a baby, when that little baby is emerging from the birth canal and or being pulled out, that is not fun. I mean, I've seen my children, the moments they were born, and oh my God, their little, their head bent and crying, and then they look at their mother, and it's like, I know you. I remember your voice. They look at the mom, and it's that pure love back, the pure love.
Being wrapped in a blanket of love.
So God, being the best parent ever, he can only have love for us. He can only have goodness and tenderness and just this desire for you to have experience joy, profound joy in this phase of your existence.
People always ask me why guides exist, and I tell them if I were to send my child out into the world, I would want some people guiding and protecting them. And I would send a human because that's what we do here. God sends guides.
Okay, so my question then is the spirit guide. Is a spirit guide in a human form? Is a spirit guide in a intuition form? Is a spirit guide like the totem animal?
I think it's all of the above.
Okay.
You know, a guide is what I saw or experienced is someone who probably lived a life journey and has decided to stay back and help us. I think we make agreements, but I also know there's more than one guide, you know, so I'm guided by humans that are good, you know, and want to help me. I'm guided by animals, you know, they bring me love unconditionally, and they dump that dopamine. You know, the minute an animal looks at you, dopamine, it starts moving through your system, and serotonin. And it is this beautiful experience just by them looking at you. And it's actually a chemical response that we have in our brains. And so they're there to help us heal and come back to that grounding of love. Everything that the spirit world gives us is about loving us. So guides are the mechanism to help guide us into that knowing and that knowledge so that we're not alone on this journey. And angels are pure love. I don't believe angels touch this planet. I don't think they could remain in pure love. We're fighting to love ourselves. I can't imagine putting them here on this planet and the experience that they'd have. But I know that they can step into someone and help, you know, like in an accident situation or, you know, but they're not walking this planet with their own 2 feet or, you know, whatever we want to call it. They actually float. The beautiful thing about angels and what my experience is with them and was with them is that when they open their mouths, the words and the music come out at the same time. And it's phenomenal. It's just, they're singing everything to you, but they're speaking. And there's no description for it except for to say it that way. But it's the most beautiful experience. And what you feel in their presence is just such true love and acceptance. And it's pure love, just not quite as intensive as source or God or whatever, you know. So it's just a beautiful, but they're there to love us, you know. It's okay, you're enough, you're worthy, you're lovable, it's okay. Where the guides are going to be, what are you thinking going down that street, and why would you steal, what are you thinking stealing, you know. It's kind of like that. I think about, you know, the old cartoons where they have the little devil and the little angel on the shoulders. It kind of feels that way, except for the devil is the guide that is not trying to be that little devil. They're actually just trying to get us to see that we need to make different choices.
You have the ability to choose no matter what.
Yes,
and
yes.
your choices will follow you. So think about what your
Yes.
choices are going to be. So you were 4.5 years old when this happened. There were lots of events in your life that were not enjoyable, not joy filled. There were difficult events in your life. When did you become a medium, though? When did you know that you had this gift where you could actually, oh, in many ways, you've helped so many people, whether it was forensics or just through grief, suicide of a loved one. When did you know you had that gift to be able to help others?
When my Nana died, she came to me, and I think I was 19, maybe 20, but I think I was in my teens. And so long ago, it's hard to go back and know dates. But when she passed, she came to me really strong. And then I found out the next day that she had died. So I had read in the paper that UCLA Medical Center was doing a study in extrasensory perception, ESP. And so I called. And the man on the phone said to me, you know, what's your story? And I said, well, this is what's happening. He said, oh, you sound like someone that we might call a medium. And a medium just means intermediary. And it's just like the, the in between. And I said, what's that? And he said, that's people that talk to the dead. And I hung up the phone and panicked. And I didn't say a word about it. I just let it be. And then after that, it got more and more and more. When I knew what a medium was, I was older. I didn't know the word for it. I really didn't understand. But when I would do therapeutic work, and counsel people, I would say things like, your trauma comes from, watching your grandmother die. You tried to revive her. You were just a baby, little child, and this has stayed with you. And they'd say, I didn't tell you that. And I'd panic. I'm going to be 66. So if you go back to that time in life, you didn't talk about seeing spirits. They'd take my license away. So I panic and I would lie. Literally, I would back away and say, oh, you must have told me. I know you told me. And maybe I'm thinking of someone else. A lot of people go through that. I would just trip over myself. And I finally made a decision that I couldn't do that. But what happened is they knew. And they would tell their friends and their mothers and I'm the one hiding it, but they already knew. So when I announced it, it was right when Facebook came out. And I wrote, I'm a medium. I talk to people who are gone, dead. I don't believe in death, but dead, for human words. And because death means no longer existence, no longer in existence. If you think about that, that doesn't fit. We just gave it that name, and then we created that term. That's a dictionary term. That's not a spirit term. Let's, for the sake of, we'll say. And anyway, I would do this connection that I would get lost in it. And I would say, they're not dead. And just for the sake of people understanding who I was putting, I talk to them and I'm connected to them. And I said all this stuff, and then I pressed the button. And when I pressed it, and I said, if you don't want to be my friend, that's okay. If you don't want to be my family, that's okay, because they're all Catholic. And I thought for sure they'd reject me. And many of them ended up saying to me, you don't think we knew that you talked to people on the other side? Like, how did you not think we knew that? And then others didn't say anything. But when I pressed that button, I started sobbing. And it wasn't because I was afraid of the reaction. It was because I felt relief. I could be authentic. And I had to not let it matter. Still, for many years, people would ask me, what do you do for a living? And I'd say, I'm a therapist. I'm a counselor, whatever, whatever came out of my mouth looking at therapeutic work. And then one day I just said, I'm done with this. And I say, I'm a medium. I hesitate and I give them a look like, what are they going to say? And I say, well, I'm a medium. And I say it just like that, because I know there's an onslaught coming at some point, it's going to come at me. But most of the time people just go, they either go, oh, and I can hear their wheels turning, it's like crazy woman. Or they say, wow, tell me more, which now it's more that than anything. It's that expansion of tell me more, tell me more.
There's a shift. There really is a shift away from that traditional stuff, the 1950s, 1960s, 1970s, and it's moving towards a truth that we couldn't talk about. Because we're of the same generation, we couldn't talk about that. We couldn't talk about dead grandma coming and talking to us in the middle of the night. We couldn't talk about the dreams that you have where you learn something in your dream. And the word ESP, you talk about the UCLA, the study, people would have just went, stay away from that stuff. That's just not
Yes.
good. Just
Yes.
stay away from
They stopped studying it, I think, for a long time because people were thinking they were crazy.
Yeah, crazy, evil, or it's just not something to touch.
So hard for me to hear that word evil. I think, and people use it. It's good that you open that door, because for a good medium who cares about her clients and wants to help them, she's holding space in a very, very painful time. I know I do. I'm holding space and I'm hearing the worst of the worst. And I go home every day with all of that loss, and I'm hearing it and I'm seeing it and witnessing it and experiencing it in some form. And I have to hold myself up through that. And it's not easy, you know, when you hear about somebody who's lost their child and they're crying in your arms and they're trying to figure out if they're still there, and you're trying to let them know, and then they realize they're there and they go home, you know, with that knowing, but that doesn't change. It makes grief a little less intensive for the time being, but you have to go through the stages. And we know that. So we're carrying this very painful energy, trying to help the spirit world connect with a loved one in one swoop of 45 minutes. And it's not easy. And then we go home with all day long. I do sometimes 13 hours a day of work because I teach metaphysics. And I am drained. And, you know, people say, what do you do? And I said, well, some days I feel energized and some days I feel very drained, depending upon what happened to the person. And, you know, is it a child? Children really get me. And sometimes the next day I wake up and I'd sit and just cry. I just sit on my couch, I'd stay in my jammies and I cry. And then I go about life again, you know? So it's not an easy job. It's a very painful job, but we do it because we want people to know that their loved ones haven't left them. And the loved ones want them to know that. And we're so connected that we want to share what they want their loved ones to know because it's so important.
So, Susan, you are an evidential medium and a forensic medium. What is the difference between the two?
Well, forensic medium is I help people that are missing find, you know, their loved ones find them. I don't do it very often. I only do a couple a year. It's very trying and it's very difficult. They sometimes don't know where they are because if they did, they'd live in that trauma. And so we're trying to locate them or find out what happened to them. When I have done it and when I do it, it's pretty powerful. So I love that part of it. And see, you said forensics and evidential mediumship is bringing evidence forward of loved ones existing. So that's the difference. So maybe someone will come to me and I'll say, I see that you lost your daughter. She's telling me her name was or is. She's telling me your last conversation was uncomfortable. She's telling me that she had a drug addiction. She's telling me that you're suffering and feeling guilty because you told her to leave your house. You know, those are evidential things that I can't know. And that's what you want from a medium. You want to get evidence. Sometimes I'll get their names. Many times I'm kind of known for names. I don't get dates. I'm not known for that. And so we all have different abilities. But sometimes I don't, you know, everything is vibrational energy coming into us, and we have to figure out what they're saying. And it drops basically into our crown chakra as information and we repeat it. And the goal is to not hold back, to give what you get, right or wrong, because most of the time it's going to make sense to them, would make sense to you, and to not put your storyline behind it. So it's a lot of work. And I love evidential mediumship, but it is stressful because if someone comes and you can't get that evidence, they don't believe their loved one exists. That's a huge burden to carry, you know? So it's really important that we get sleep, or we take care of ourselves, and we do the right things in order to connect in. And there are times evidence just doesn't come, that we're not connected to the energy, and that happens. And a good medium will give you back your money and send you to someone else, you know? So.
So, okay, so will people come to you to ask, I lost my diamond ring and I don't know where I put it? That kind of stuff?
No, I don't. I find people, sometimes their loved one will say to me, so if they've lost a loved one and they want to connect in to find out information, sometimes they'll say, oh, it's behind the stove. I dropped off your finger. It's in the gutter right in front of your house, you know, things like that. I'll hear those things and I'll say them. And many times they're accurate. Sometimes it's a little off, but they find it nonetheless in that area. Or the loved one will show me something like a toilet, and I'll know it fell in the tank, you know, that kind of thing. When you were cleaning the toilet and you lifted up the tank, you put some Clorox in there, and guess what? Your ring fell off, you know, it's sitting in there, you know, things like that. But I find people. So my goal is, if someone is missing, to help find out what happened. And even if I can't locate their bodies, I can tell them when they will or who will, if they're going to be located. But let me just say this, not everyone that has been murdered or has died missing wants to be located. So they don't tell me where they are. They tell me what happened because they don't want their families to see something like that and go through that. So what they do is they tell me what happened. If the family chooses to pursue the location, that would be them on their own, because I hear the loved ones sometimes say, oh no, I don't want my mom to find me in that grave. I do not want her to find me. It will destroy her. She'll never get it out of her head. Rather, she worry or wonder where I am. So if you can just tell them this happened and I'm no longer on the planet, that will be enough. Or I am on the planet. I'm very, very careful not to tell people that their loved ones have died. I don't think that's my place. And so it makes it harder to do forensics. So they'll ask me in this way, how do you know this information? And I'll say, well, they're talking to me. And I leave it at that.
So, okay, if somebody went missing, but they're still alive because they're choosing to leave a situation, can you know that?
Yes, and I get that from their loved ones. And their their loved ones on the other side want to have some resolution. So I talk to them. There's always someone ancestrally that's, on the other side. Ancestors are there. And so, if we just deny that, we're not being true to what's there. And so people come in and say things, people have asked me, how can they be there and come back here if they're having past lives and all these things? And I tell them, our highest self is on the other side always. If we brought our whole soul here, every ounce of it, and our whole knowing here, we would implode. I think that's why angels don't come here, because they have such a high knowledge base. And our highest self is so high because we've done so many journeys that we couldn't come to one lifetime with that. So part of us comes. And I think we probably decide how much. I think everyone has the ability to do mediumship and intuitive work, but we decide I'm not going to do it in that lifetime, so I'm not going to bring it all, where I probably decided I'm going to use it. And so I'm going to bring it because it's a different area of the brain.
What really fascinated me in the book was when you talked about the difference between fear and intuition. Historically, that we have that metaphor. It was a gut. I felt it in my gut. It was a gut feeling, blah, blah, blah. So I followed my gut. But sometimes we get fear in our gut too. So what's the difference between an intuitive thought and this is fear-based? How do you know the difference?
Well, first off, fear starts in a thought, where intuition is a feeling in the gut. So that is accurate. It's a feeling like maybe you get butterflies, or you feel like something punched your gut, or if it's a good thing, you feel joy and it comes from the gut and goes to a thought. In order to get linguistics and speak, it has to go to the brain. Everything does that we do that. The brain carries linguistics. Um, and language is just so important in order to give information to ourselves and others. But fear starts with a panic feeling. It's dark, it's heavy, it's ugly, it's scary, it's overwhelming. An intuitive hit is knowledge. So it might turn into something scary, but it starts with knowledge. For instance, a car pulls up. Let's just do the elevator routine, because that's really clear. Gavin D. Becker, The Gift of Fear, the book, The Gift of Fear. I read this in his book and I find it fascinating. So he says, you go to the elevator and the elevator door opens and there's a man standing there. And your initial instinct is, this man's not safe, but he looks wonderful. He's got a briefcase. He's dressed really nice. He's in his, work clothes. He's got a tie on. He smiles this beautiful smile. It's radiant. But your gut initially went, not safe. You send that up to your thinking. And your thinking goes, I'm just being silly. I'm just being in fear. I'm just overreacting. That would be a dangerous situation to not listen to your gut. You get in the elevator, something bad happens. And, unfortunately, a fear base would be the elevator door hasn't opened. And what if somebody's in there? What if? That would be the difference of not listening to your gut next to listening to your gut.
You said it starts in your gut as a feeling, butterflies, a tenseness, a ball of something in your stomach, actual feeling. But does that feeling turn into words?
Well, I think everything goes into our brain for the ability to speak what's going on inside of us. So, yes, sometimes we hear words like step back from the elevator.
Right.
Don't go, even if the elevator door hasn't opened yet and we don't even know if someone's in there, we hear this little voice, this feeling, these words, this little voice that says, step away from the elevator,
Yeah.
Susan. And I'll step back and ultimately the door opens and something's going on. So listening to our intuition can save us, but fear is different. Fear would say, what if somebody's in that elevator? Should I step back? That would be more of the fear base. That's a question mark. It's not a knowing, it's a question mark. And so it takes practice to distinguish the difference. And sometimes we fail at that, which is, it just is what it is, but it takes practice because our initial instinct is to go to fear base. That's initial instinct that we have when we don't feel like we're safe or that we're, in the dark or whatever it is. And so we have to really practice that intuitive information. So that this is how you do it. I tell people life is in session, be present. So when my students come to me, my first question always at the beginning of the new class is, what color were the flowers you passed when you came up to my office? And they'll say to me, I don't know. I didn't see them. I know there are flowers there, but I didn't see their color. And I said, how would you know to listen to your intuition? How would you know you had an intuitive hit? How would you know if your loved one's beside you if you don't know what you tangibly saw, like you saw with your own eyes? You're not even aware of that. So it's important to be present. Life's in session, be present. And when you're present, you can connect into loved ones. You can connect into your intuition. You're in knowledge base at all times. You have something happening coming into you, and you're present in the moment to feel it, experience it, and know it. Fear is not being present. Fear is taking you out of the present moment. It's, what if I'm taking this walk and someone comes and gets me and you're not in the present moment, right? But an intuitive hit would be, I need to pay attention to what's around me at this moment. And we aren't in session with life. We're so busy thinking, we're on our phones, we're on our computers, we're so busy thinking about what our mom said to us earlier, or what this person thought, or this person said, or what I'm going to do later on, or what I'm going to have for lunch. We're not in the moment. So the goal is to be in the moment. And then you get closer to what the spirit world's trying to show you.
Anyone who would have watched our show up until this point, if they've stayed with us this long, I think a lot of them would actually be present. They're already at a place in their life where they're open to hearing more for whatever reason, right? They're open to hearing more of this kind of content. So how do you become more intuitive? You talked about just being aware of the everyday, but it's hard to get there. I mean, how many thousands of stimuli are we experiencing throughout the
Right.
day? Like tens of thousands. So how do you get to a place where I'm feeling something in my gut? The elevator door open, don't go in, because most of us are not going to even hear that.
That's the point. They're not going to be able to hear it if they're not present in the moment. So I'm not present 24/7. There's times where I just space out completely. I couldn't tell you all the colors of the flowers in my own garden. So it's learning, and that's just honesty. I am having a human experience, but I remind myself, especially when I'm leaving my home, be present. And I repeat that thought to myself. Life is in session, be present, Susan. Pay attention to the road, pay attention to what's around you. Experience the world that you live in. We don't experience it anymore. We're somewhere else. We're in TikTok world. And I don't see anything wrong with TikTok. I think it's a really fun thing, but it's also a fun thing. It's not to be taking over our lives, yet it does. Hours go by and I will look up and I've been looking at Instagram or TikTok or something, hours. And I go, oh my gosh, it's 3 o'clock. And I wasn't aware of my surroundings. I wasn't present. So, and we all do it. There's no pointing fingers here. We all do it, but the goal is to be in the moment. And so when I am doing mediumship, sometimes I hear about, someone losing a daughter, and it's horrific. And I'm driving home and I'm thinking, oh my God, what if that happened to my daughter? And I have to pause myself and say, not today, Susan. Where are your feet now? So I actually literally come to the moment, literally stay where my feet are. My foot is on the gas pedal. I have on purple shoes. I'm, got red pants on. I'm, driving home. I have my hands on the steering wheel. I'm present. My butt's in the seat. I feel the seat. I'm feeling what's around me. Just like when we're going into meditation, it's being present in that moment. And that brings me back to the now. And I can't be in two places at one time with my brain. Thank goodness. So, the heart has 40,000 neurons, and it is more powerful. It's called the mini brain. It is more powerful speaking to the brain than the brain speaks to the heart. And the soul seats in the heart. So we have to be present with our heart space, not our brain. It is so powerful. It carries the memories and the knowledge we need to know on any given moment. The brain just gives us the information that's coming from it. And that's a scientific fact, by the way. It's a study they've done, many studies, that the heart actually speaks to the brain more than the brain speaks to the heart. And so if we know that, we can be in that intuition comes from the heart space into the gut. And the soul seats in there. So my belief is intuition literally comes through that vine into our soul, into the heart space very rapidly, and into our gut, not from our head to our gut.
Do you believe that you have guardian angels, like personal guardian angels, that as soon as you call on them, they're there in the car with you riding, and they're
I
going
do
to?
believe we have angels with us, but they can't stop everything. We have free will choices. So if I decide I'm going to run myself over the bridge, they're not going to be able to stop me. They'll try. They'll argue with me, that argument you have in your head. So when someone is, let's just go to suicide, since I have so much of it in my family. So if someone is arguing with themselves, I would think that's probably the angels and the guides going, no, you don't want to do this. Do I want to do this? I don't think I want to do, I have to do this. I don't have any options in my mind. So I think there's an argument going on. And then there's a finality to that, where we just make the decision with our free will. But I believe they're constantly trying to help us. I don't think so. I have two brothers and a mother who died by suicide. And I don't, when they transitioned, I don't believe they were punished. I don't believe that. I think that is a human's little and small thought. They don't think little and small there. They understand us and our suffering. And I believe that my brothers argued with themselves. I know they did. They've told me that from the other side, and my mother did too. And I know my mother did because she shared with me here that she didn't want to be here anymore. So she was already having the argument with herself. And I believe those are our guides and our angels trying to help us, make a better decision. Because what we don't experience needs to be experienced because we made the decision to experience, right? And so and we leave early by choice. And I don't believe everything is a planned event. I think many mediums believe that, and I honor that they believe that, but that's not my belief. It's not what I saw. And I have to go by what they've told me, what I've experienced, which was free will is very involved in all choices, including leaving the planet. It can be involved. It could be a contract. It could also be a free will decision. I don't think they contract for someone to get drunk and drive into a family and kill the whole family. I don't think that's a contract. Could the death be a possible contract? Yes. But I tend to believe that there are free will choices, and we can't have it both ways. If there's free will, there's free will. And so we can't say, well, this isn't free will, but this is, and this isn't free will, but this is, because we don't know. We're not meant to know. But I know that the God of my understanding and the spirit world of my understanding would never, ever set up a situation to cause harm to me. So I would not make, a mother who says, please tell me I didn't contract for my child to commit suicide. I will tell them you did not make that contract. The loving souls on the other side would never want you to make that. And you wouldn't want that for yourself. That's too traumatic and horrific, but it happens. And free will is involved in that. And we experience the fallout from that. I tell people, that are suicidal, keep in mind that you're not getting rid of the pain when you leave here that way. You're just transferring it to someone else that you love. And that's an important information to have. And that's important knowledge, because we don't want to do that. We love our families and our friends. We don't want to transfer that pain. Very
And
few
that
suicides are, I'm going to show you. Very few. It's most of them are pain related, emotional pain that they are, physical pain that they can't get out of. They can't get themselves further ahead enough to recognize that all emotions shift and change. It's like a roller coaster, and that they won't be in this feeling forever. They can't get past that, to that space. So they make the decision to leave, many of them.
your brothers had alcohol or drug addictions, right?
Mm-hmm.
So do you think that played into the suicide? Do you think
I
that?
think for them it did, but I don't think it plays into every person's suicide.
Okay.
My mother was not an addict, but my mother had two sons who killed themselves, and a husband who died from pancreatic cancer. And she was alone in the world in her mind, even though we were there, and she had Parkinson's. So, I have to say that it doesn't have to be addiction that creates these choices. Sometimes someone feels responsible for their family to the degree that they can't handle that responsibility. They lose their job and they don't know what they're going to do, and they feel like failures, and they keep feeding that. So what you fear, you feed, and what you feed, you believe, and what you believe becomes your reality. And so their reality becomes, the fear base of, I'm not enough. I can't tell my family. I can't support them. What am I worth? What is my worth? What am I worthy for? Why am I here? And so they're feeding that as they're going. It begins with the fear base of, I'm not enough. And that becomes their reality. And then they say, I don't want to be here. There's no use of me being here because I can't find a job. It's been 2 years. I can't find a job. I'm no good to anyone, which is not a truth. If their loved one could go back and talk to them, they would tell them, I don't care if you never work another day in your life as long as you're here with me. I just need you to be here. And even though I was upset and angry at you for not finding a job, I would take that a million times over next to you leaving me. So and I've heard that millions of times. So I know, maybe not millions, thousands of times. I know for a fact that that's not what someone wants for their loved one. But the loved one doesn't know that because they're in such a dark place. They're not thinking about the pain it's going to cause. They're thinking about getting out of the pain they're in.
I believe that when we can forgive someone who's gone, we weren't able to do it while they were alive. We weren't in a place yet where we could forgive someone who's gone. But I believe that if we can forgive them, even when they're past the veil, that there's something that changes.
I believe you set the relationship free in order to have a new landscaped relationship, but not them. They're free. They're free there. But you have a new landscaped relationship. You've re-landscaped it. And because you've set yourself free from it, because that blocks you from feeling them and seeing them and hearing them, knowing they're existing. There's a block there, and it's called anger or lack of forgiveness or confusion or whatever it is, whatever word we want to put on it for each individual person. But in actuality, they are free. People tell me, what if I don't see the light when I die? Because I see people who are leaving the planet from illness. And I tell them, you are the light. You don't have to worry about seeing it. You become it. That's where you live. That's your home, the light. And you are the light. And as long as you leave with love, you will vibrate higher there. But even if you don't leave with love, you're going to vibrate high enough because you are the light. And I think that people need to know that. It's very scary when you're leaving this planet. I think about, if I was leaving the planet, what would I feel? And I would be afraid, not where I'm going, but how I'm going to go. And I'd want to make sure that I see that light. I've made mistakes on this journey. We all want to make sure we see it, but I don't have to worry about that because they tell me over and over, Susan, your soul is the light. We created it in perfection, completely perfect, in perfection, not in perfection. And it is the light. And that's what carries you through your whole journey. So that light never goes out.
I remember when my brother died, he died with cancer. I was there the evening before, and he could almost see, like he was there, but there were moments when he could see something else, and he was looking right through us. His eyes were open, and he was looking right through us. Any of the souls that have come back, and the spirits that have come back, do they say that there's anything like that?
Yes, I worked at hospice, and they reach for their loved ones and they say, oh, my brother Terry's here and my brother Tommy's here and my mom's here. And oh my gosh, they're all here. What are they doing here, Susan? And I go, well, they're here to come get you. And I watch them let go, and sometimes they go, oh no, they're too close for comfort. I need them to back away. I'm not ready yet. I hear different things, or I did, but they are there for us, and they're going to show themselves, and we do cross over and acclimate back into that world before we get there, just like we go through the birth canal here to acclimate. There's a process here just like there's a process there. They're so equal in value. They're so synonymous. Birth and death, what we call death, are exactly the same. We fight it, we fear it, we don't know what's going to happen, we don't know what we're going to experience, the fighting coming out of the canal. But when they come and they get wrapped in that blanket of love, all is right with their world. And it's the same thing there. All our loved ones are there greeting us, and they're wrapping us in their blanket of love, and all is right with our journey. So they're so similar, but we're fighting it. We don't want to, we don't, it is part of our human nature. We have been created to fight death so that we are in survival. Otherwise we wouldn't survive here. It's our ego, that's what it's created for. We use it for other things at times, but it's created to stop us from allowing the car to hit us or the gun to shoot us, or it wants to stay here. And our ego has a hard time even imagining life not being here. Like, how could they live life without me here? How could that happen? How could I not be here? And that's normal too.
So your book, Infinite Life and Infinite Lessons, it is profound. It's a profound book. And like I said at the beginning of the show, I'm Catholic. So the idea of a medium, talking to spirits, spirit guides, all of that woo-woo stuff. I mean, I touch it, touch it and back up, touch it and back up. But the book, it's like goosebumps again, goosebumps, full of them. So I just loved it. I love your book, and I can't wait for the next one to come out because you're in the process of writing another book.
Yeah,
So
infinite
what's the
healing.
next?
I don't know if they'll end up calling it that, but
Right.
that's what I want the name to be, because I like everything to be infinite. And I want to do like a series. So we have Infinite Life, Infinite Lessons, which is the book that's out now. And then it will be Infinite Healing and Facing the Wounds That Bind Us is what the subtitle will be, I'm hoping. Because I feel that there are so many wounds that we have in our heart space and in our spirit space, not our soul, but in our heart spirit space, that bind us from taking the next right step, or that stop us from growing the way that we can grow. And it's like the dark night of the soul, basically, and looking at that and facing it and seeing what we can do to make that, to heal ourselves, and in turn others heal. So that's what the book is about. It's actually really good. It tells the story of a very difficult adoption process that I went through, and it's quite extensive. But yeah, it's very good.
And when do you think? Like, what's
Well,
your
that'll be another year and a half, because it takes a
yeah.
year to go from, if somebody buys it, it takes a year. And if they don't, I'll put it out myself, because I really feel it will help people heal also. Infinite Life, Infinite Lessons is coming out in paperback in July. So I'm excited about that, because it's a hardback now. And I really feel that it is a book that helps people see another side, not convincing. It's not out there to convince anyone that their belief is the wrong belief. And in fact, I think it embraces the belief of whatever you choose to believe. But there are other things that maybe help expand our mind into asking questions, which, truly someone said to me one time, if you're still asking questions, God is happy, because
Yeah.
he's there to answer them, and it means you still believe. So questions are important. And I think this book expands that space and allows people to ask the question, are they there?
Mhm.
Do they exist? And it gives them evidence of some sort that they do.
So what's your last message of hope for our viewers?
That you are loved and you are loved.
You
You are
know,
created with love. And that is so powerful. It's so important to know that. You have value here. They created you. How can you not? How can you not? But this place here tells us we're not valuable. But that's not a truth. That's our brain. Go to your soul. Your soul will give you value every time.
so how can we follow you, or where can we find you, or if we want a medium healing? I think you do it over Zoom as well, right?
I
In
do.
person and in
I do.
Zoom. So where can we go to
Well,
find you?
I do grief therapy, mediumship, intuitive work, past life regressions. I do all of that. And Reiki. They can go to susangrau.com, Grau. They can go to Susan Grau Official for any Instagram and any social media. And I have an Infinite Soul Sanctuary. That's a subscriber site where I teach once a month on it, only there. And I bring in sound baths and, some beautiful, really healing meditations and things like that. And it's all things spirit. And then my book, they can find that anywhere books are sold.
I would encourage our viewers to take a look at it, listen to it. And I will never think about a yellow brick road again
Same.
without thinking of you. What a wonderful thing. So thank you, Susan, for coming here today. And, here we go again, goosebumps. But because there's so many of my people on the other side, and I know they want me to have joy. They
I
don't
do.
want me to grieve anymore their loss. They want me to know they're safe, they're back with love, that they will be here to help me if I ask. They can come to me in my dreams. I just need to believe and to welcome that in, because that's what they want from me, just pure joy, pure love, while I'm still on this plane.
We can tell the difference between pure love and love that is not pure. And I want to remind your viewers of that. So if a spirit comes in, we can tell the difference. We can't be fooled by pure love. We cannot. Our soul knows the difference instantly. So you don't have to be afraid or feel like, you're opening what people think they're opening a pathway that's really bad. And you can feel it. There's a complete difference in it. And most of your viewers that have lost someone have had the experience of a visitation. They just don't talk about it, but it's real.
I hope that you come back after you publish your next book, or when it's,
I
pre-order
absolutely
time.
will.
Yeah. And just, boy, we'll have a great talk.
I would
So
love that.
me too. So enjoy your summer in Southern California. I will enjoy my summer in Northern Alberta, and we will meet somewhere, Susan, either in this life or the next.
I'm sure we will.
And share a margarita.
Yes, that's what we'll do for sure.
Wonderful. So if you also enjoyed the show today, please subscribe. It'll help me. It'll help Susan to get the word out that there is hope. I mean, yes, we've all lost loved ones, and sometimes in very horrible, traumatic ways, but there's love on the other side. And just knowing that they're safe and in good hands, way better hands than they could have ever been on this planet. It relieves sadness, it relieves grief. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Love you. Bye-bye. This podcast and Inspired Healing Hypnotherapy do not provide medical advice. The information included here is not limited to text, graphics, images, or other material contained, and are for informational purposes only. No material in this podcast is intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified healthcare provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition or treatment, and before undertaking a new healthcare regimen, and never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you have heard on this site.